The Housemaid. In the quaint town of Gable Hollow, a secluded mansion stood, draped in ivy and secrets. The mansion's owner, Mrs. Caldwell, an elderly woman with a penchant for solitude, hired a new housemaid named Eliza to assist her in maintaining the vast, dusty estate. Eliza, a young woman with a cheerful demeanor, was eager to prove herself and earn the money she desperately needed. From the first day, Eliza sensed something was off. The mansion was eerily silent, save for the creaks and groans of its ancient structure. Mrs. Caldwell was peculiar, speaking little and often disappearing into the shadows. But Eliza carried on, determined to do her job well. One evening, while dusting the antique furniture in the grand parlor, Eliza found an old, ornate mirror. Its surface was covered in grime, obscuring the reflection. Curious, she polished it until the glass gleamed. As she admired her handiwork, a fleeting image caught her eye, a shadowy figure standing behind her. She spun around, but no one was there. Shaking off the unease, she continued her chores. Days passed, and the occurrences became more frequent. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways, whispers tickled her ears, and doors creaked open on their own. Each time Eliza reported these incidents to Mrs. Caldwell, the old woman dismissed her concerns with a cold, knowing smile. One stormy night, the power went out, plunging the mansion into darkness. Eliza, armed with a flickering candle, made her way to the basement to check the fuse box. The basement was a labyrinth of old furniture and forgotten relics. As she fumbled in the dark, she stumbled upon a dusty, leather-bound diary. Curiosity piqued, she opened the diary and began to read. The entries detailed the life of a young woman named Margaret, who had been Mrs. Caldwell's housemaid many years ago. Margaret's words painted a picture of fear and torment, describing strange occurrences in Mrs. Caldwell's sinister behavior. Eliza's blood ran cold as she read the final entry. I fear for my life. Mrs. Caldwell is not what she seems. She keeps a terrible secret in the attic, and I must uncover it before it's too late. Determined to uncover the truth, Eliza made her way to the attic, the diary clutched tightly in her hands. The door to the attic was locked, but she found an old key hidden under a loose floorboard. Heart-pounding, she unlocked the door and ascended the creaky stairs. The attic was dimly lit by moonlight filtering through a small, dirty window. In the center of the room stood a large, covered object. With trembling hands, Eliza pulled back the dusty cloth to reveal a full-length mirror, identical to the one in the parlor. But this mirror was different, its surface seemed to ripple and shimmer, as if it were alive. Suddenly, the mirror's reflection changed, revealing a young woman who looked strikingly like Eliza, but dressed in old-fashioned maid's attire. The woman in the mirror began to speak, her voice a desperate whisper. Help me. I'm trapped. Mrs. Caldwell cursed me and imprisoned my soul in this mirror. She does this to all her housemaids. You must break the mirror to set us free. Eliza's mind raced. Was this Margaret? Could she be trusted? Before she could decide, the attic door slammed shut, and Mrs. Caldwell appeared, her eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. You shouldn't have come here, Eliza, Mrs. Caldwell hissed. I was hoping you'd be different, but curiosity always gets the best of you girls. Eliza backed away, her heart thundering in her chest. What have you done, Mrs. Caldwell? The old woman cackled. I've lived for centuries, sustained by the souls of curious young maids like you. Breaking the mirror will only seal your fate. Your soul will be mine. Desperate and terrified, Eliza grabbed a heavy candlestick and swung it at the mirror. The glass shattered with a deafening crash, and a blinding light filled the room. When the light faded, Mrs. Caldwell lay lifeless on the floor, her body shriveled and decayed. As Eliza looked around, she saw the spirits of countless young women, including Margaret, standing beside her. They smiled gratefully before dissipating into the ether, finally free. Relieved, Eliza turned to leave the attic, but as she reached the door, she caught her reflection in a shard of the broken mirror. Her blood turned to ice as she realized the truth. The face staring back at her was not her own, but Margaret's. She had set the spirits free, but in doing so, had taken their place. Eliza's scream echoed through the mansion as she vanished, her soul forever trapped within the shattered remnants of the mirror, waiting for the next curious maid to arrive.